was told to deliver this message. I was told to deliver this message. I was told to deliver this message.
Assalamu alaikum, family. It's your brother Landon X. This is our dear sister Shauna Joy X. And we are here as promised with the part 2 of our series dealing with the courtship process, but the actual show and what we're going to be doing for a while, inshallah, twice a week, is revolutionary relationships. And the current topic that we're on right now is the courtship process. As you can see at the bottom of your screen, I want to first of all thank you all for tuning in, and I'm gonna go ahead and start off in the proper fashion. In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful, I bear witness that there is no God but Allah, who mercifully appeared to us in the person of Master W. Fard Muhammad, to whom praises are due forever, plus 1,000 years as far as I'm concerned. I further bear witness that Muhammad is his messenger, the most honorable Elijah Muhammad, to be right and exact and down to the modern times. And he's at least our messenger, but in fact, exalted Christ. And I can't thank Allah enough for teaching me about those two men through one man in particular, and that man is a man that we heard from today.
Yes.
Wearing that beautiful emerald green and gold fez, and he dropped some science on us, dear brothers and sisters. We're going to hear a little bit from the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan as well on this part of this series. And I'm speaking of, as I just mentioned, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, and those three great names. I greet you in the words of peace. We say it in the Arabic language. That's the language that you and I spoke long before we knew anything about the grafted, bastardized language called English. And long before we knew anything about the grafted bastard that taught us the English. We greet you in that language, the Arabic language, with the words of peace. Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam, sir.
Okay, you was kind of late on that. All praises due to Allah. But dear brothers and sisters, as you can see, this is part 2 of the courtship process. This is a series that we're doing called the Revolutionary Relationships. Revolutionary Relationships. And before we get started, we're going to rehash a little bit off of our previous episode. Again, we want to do this about twice a week. The first episode was what, Tuesday? And first of all, we're going to cover what the name means. The name of the actual series, which is Revolutionary Relationships. The minister kind of touched on this when he first came out today. And I want to make it clear again. And inshallah, we'll make it clear every week. In this hour and in this current trend of wokeness and black consciousness, which is beautiful. You know, I prayed to Allah before I even knew that name, Allah. I wished, I think it's the proper way, because I wasn't much of a praying person at that time in my life, but I wished of a time where I could see where we were becoming as conscious and as aware politically and ethnically as you saw in the 60s and the 70s. And I feel like we're coming back on that time. We got a long way to go still, but we're inching toward that. But one thing about being conscious and being so-called pro-black is that there's nothing more pro-black, there's nothing more conscious, there's nothing more revolutionary than loving a black woman if you're a black man. There's nothing more revolutionary than loving a black man if you're a black woman. And by black, I'm not talking about a race. I'm talking about the essence in which all color comes from. I'm talking about the aboriginal people of this earth, the red, the so-called brown, even our Asian brothers and sisters, because we all Asiatic when you go back to the beginning of things, if we understand. So with that said, dear brothers and sisters, we also want to make sure that we remind you that if you have any questions or comments, because what this is, brothers and sisters, this is not, let me first go over what this is not. This show is not Brother Landon and Sister Shauna Joy holding some kind of tutorial on how to, as if we've mastered it ourselves. We are not the standard of marriage. We actually brand new to that, 2 years next month, and we're not even the standard on courtship, because we're going to talk a little bit about how courtship has to be a continuous process. What this is a cipher. We build it. This is a classroom. We learn it. You know, if you go to a math class, the person that is teaching that math class, they're not the all-knower. They're not the supreme knower of mathematics. They just might know a little bit more than you, and they've studied it, and they've at least studied it enough to know enough to teach a class on it. And we're not really teaching a class. We're actually having an open dialogue. So that's why we encourage comments and questions for those, and don't worry about what your personal situation or affiliation is, what you call yourself. This ain't really about religion. This is just about being sophisticated and being highly civilized black people, because that's really the only way we're gonna have any salvation. You can have all the guns you want, you can have all the knowledge you want, you can do this, you can do that, but listen, man, if the unity between the black man and the black woman, the aboriginal man and the aboriginal woman is off the mark, then we will fail at everything we do. Also, dear brothers and sisters, we're going to use the courtship manual. The courtship manual as our guide through this process. Yes. There were a couple of viewers who hit us up this week for a copy of the courtship manual, and we do want to encourage you to message us on NationTownTV if you want to get a copy of that yourselves. Again, it doesn't matter what your so-called religious affiliation is. This is not just some secret Muslim meeting, just like our meetings at the mosque. Our meetings at the mosque, unless otherwise noted, are all public meetings. So we're just giving you a little insight about how we do things and the science behind what they mean, if we understand. Now, getting started, like I said, we will be working from the actual courtship manual, the comprehensive courtship manual of the Nation of Islam. And one thing I want to touch on before we officially get started, I realize that there's one group of people who may feel alienated from this. I'm not talking about white folks. White folks can watch. Y'all can watch if y'all want to. Y'all nosy anyway. Y'all the universal snooper. Y'all gonna watch anyway. But for those who are married, you may be thinking, well, you know, this is interesting, but I don't know if, you know, since I'm already married. But we got some wise counsel from our Western Regional Student Minister, and I definitely want to give him a shout out. He's in Chicago right now, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. Minister Abdul Malik Saeed, better known and formerly known as Tony Muhammad, he let us know that there comes a time in marriage where you have to court again. First of all, you'll hear any successful married couple say you should keep dating, and by that they mean, you know, keep spending time with each other. But Minister Abdul Malik also pointed out that you need to court. I believe it was 7 years. After your first 7 years, especially, you need to court. Go through the courtship process, which just doesn't mean going to the movies or a jazz concert or a rap concert or just, no, it's not about going out with each other and putting on the front. There's a science to the courtship process, and that's what we're dealing with. We got to get back to that science, because that's one of the sciences that was stripped from us in slavery. The science of business, the science of warfare, and the science of mating, which is where courting comes into play. So with that said, dear brothers and sisters, dear sister, do we have any comments or questions starting off?
No, sir, not at this
Any
time.
greetings? Let's shout out to those greeting us.
Well, we're going to give the greetings of Assalamu alaikum and Walaikum salam back to everyone. And we appreciate you all for tuning in. Please be sure to like and share and invite others as well.
Okay, do we have that? All praises due to Allah. So as we get everything up and running, I'm gonna go ahead and get started. What we're gonna start with, and inshallah, we're gonna start this with every episode. We're gonna actually deal with the definition of courtship. You always want to know the definition of a word, especially when you're dealing with the grafted language of English, which is a baby language. It's a new language. And that's why every word in the English dictionary has 5 or 6 different definitions, because it's mixed up with all kinds of other different languages. So courtship defined, courtship is the intentional process in which two people formally not meaning used to, but formally meaning in a very civilized manner, decide to engage in discovery to find out whether they share enough compatibility characteristics in crucial areas to get engaged and married. Yes, sir. So that's what courtship means, and that's what we're talking about when we're talking about courtship. We're not just talking about go together, hang out, Netflix and chill. That's not courtship. That's not a foundation for any significant relationship, and that's probably why as black people, there's so much disappointment amongst men and women. Because like I said on the last episode, if you survey Aboriginal men, Aboriginal women, regardless of their religion, regardless of what they call themselves, there's disappointment across the board. There's disappointment across the board. So if there's that much disappointment, that many broken families, that many issues, then that means somebody's doing something wrong. And you would be foolish to think, well, it's just because men are this and women are that. That's that generalizations that we talked about last week. Let's get out of generalizations. That's spooky, and that's a weak way to think. There's a science to everything. There's even a science to BS. There's a science that leads to everything. There's a science to foolishness. There's a science to lying. There's always a science to something, and that's what we're dealing with. We're dealing with the science of mating. Now, earlier last week, we started off in the actual courtship manual, dealing with, not necessarily that, but dealing with the actual courtship manual on page 14. And we got to touch on that. We had so many comments and great questions that we barely got to touch the manual. So we're going to start off in that manual with those courtship comments. Let me see if I can pull it up on the screen, the actual part that we're going to be dealing with today. And again, assalamu alaikum to everybody that's chiming in. Just give your brother a quick moment. There we go. All right, family. So here's what we have. This is the page that we're on. This is page 14. And number 1 we dealt with last week, and I'm just gonna go over that real quick. Courtship. What do you know of another on first sight? It should first of all be a time which you are learning about the other person, and in the process about yourself. The devil puts more emphasis on wooing and far too less on knowledge. His definitions are immature and serve his evil aims and purposes. You both are gathering data on which to make a serious decision. A major key in that which makes for success is that both people must put forth their best effort to communicate honestly. Self-honesty is critical. I love the part where it says that the devil's definitions are immature.
Yes.
The devil's definitions are immature. That goes back to what I was just talking about, those generalizations. We have a very immature understanding of courtship and relationships in general. How could we know a better understanding unless we have a teacher, unless a teacher is sent? But how could we, even greater obstacle to that is, of course, the 300 to 400 year sojourn of slavery. And I just want to quickly remind you that in slavery, there was no real courtship. There was no, we took a broom and hopped over it and called it marriage. But if you were in Virginia and Massa wanted to send your husband to Mississippi and sell him to Mississippi, or sell you to Florida, or sell him to Texas and sell you to Georgia, then he absolutely could. If he wanted to take your child and sell him.
That's right.
The men weren't real fathers. All they did was tote that barge and bale that hay. All the sister did, was whatever she was told to do. In the house, outside the house, take care of Massa's little funny looking, Peckerwood children or whatever. But we were slaves. I mean, in the worst way. So we didn't have that science or the understanding of two people coming together and having a solid union. So that was taken from us. So that's what we're trying to get back on. But what we're dealing with today primarily is number 2, where it says you are exploring each other's minds and hearts to the extent that you can, as it is easier to see into the mind than the heart, and learning each other's motivations and aspirations on how much do you agree and in what areas, both vital and not critical. You must also learn of those areas wherein you disagree. There must be recognition that there will be more to learn of each other after marriage occurs, if it occurs. And the only purpose of courtship is to find out if this is the person that you are comfortable and are sure as you can be about marrying. That's the only purpose. It ain't to kick it. It ain't to be Muslim boyfriend and girlfriend. It ain't about going together. Oh, that's my boo, that's my bae. It ain't all that weird stuff. This is the science of actual mating. So I'm going to turn it over for a minute to our beloved sister, my wife, one of the best decisions I ever made in my life. We ain't going to talk about the other decisions I made in my life, but without question, number 1 with a bullet and a baseball bat, best decision I ever made in my life to make this sister, my wife, Sister Shauna Joy X. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam, sir. In the name of Allah, who came in the person of Master Farrakhan Muhammad, to whom all praises are due forever, I bear witness that the exalted Christ, the first begotten of the dead, the most honorable Elijah Muhammad, is his divine messenger. And I further bear witness that the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan is the Son of God and Jesus in our midst today, if you but understand. In those 3 holy and righteous names, I greet you in the greeting words of peace. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam.
I think that's a beautiful comment, just like the first comment we addressed last week. And one of the main points that stands out to me is the very first sentence where it says you are exploring each other's minds and hearts to the extent that you can, as it is easier to see into the mind and then the heart, and learning each other's motivations and aspirations. So for me, one thing that made that easier to do is before you get into a relationship with a brother, and let me not say relationship, before you get into a courtship with a brother, before there's even anyone in your mind that you're thinking, ooh, he's cute, I want to get to know him. You want to first get to know yourself and write down what are the things that you're looking for out of a husband. What are the things that you are looking for out of a friend, out of a maintainer, out of a provider, out of a father, out of a work partner? All of these things, these different aspects of a man that a husband encompasses, you need to visualize that in your mind through deep thought, meditation, and self-understanding and prayer. And when you have that, you need to write that down and get that on paper. I know mine was like pages long, but the reason why that you want to write this down is because once you get into the emotion, and we are emotional beings, inshallah, we are all striving to rise above emotion into the thinking of Allah God. But if you, like myself, are not there yet, you know, we want to have something solid written down outside of the emotion of, oh my gosh, I'm in courtship, you know, he put in papers for me, and we have all of these, you know, little giddy butterflies and everything else swirling around that might cloud our judgment. So you want to write those things down, and you want to have that fully, completely thought out, but also you need to have yourself disciplined and yourself trained so that if or when any red flags show up and say, oh, he's not lining up with what I want. You know, he's not lining up with the type of husband, the type of lifestyle, the things that I'm looking for, that you can discipline yourself to say, even though he might have that little wavy hair or those big old muscles or whatever it is that physically or so that you may be attracted to, that you can say, make a stern decision based off of knowledge and actual facts and emotion to the side that, okay, this might not be the brother for me. You know, so it's a lot of components that go into that one sentence that we have to back up in ourselves early before the process, because it sounds good in the process, but once you get there, it may be hard to follow through.
All praises due to Allah. One moment, dear brothers and sisters. While we get started, what we're going to do is hear from our beloved minister, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, real quick while we cue him up. Make sure it's all set and ready to go. We all ready with that, with the audio from the minister. 1 second. We're going to hear from our beloved brother minister in just a moment. All praises due to Allah. Yes, ma'am. I concur with everything she just said. I mean, she's smarter than me. A lot of people don't know that, but this is my teacher. Sometimes reluctantly, all praises due to Allah. But we're going to hear from the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. He touched briefly on marriage and what it means to him and the importance of it to him. And we're going to hear from my beloved minister, dear Queen. If you can go ahead and cue that up.
I thank Allah, my dear wife has come in. I thank Allah for giving me such a wonderful companion. And I hope that each one of you who are married will stay married. And when you learn the value of a woman and how to be to her what God created us to be. You will be blessed beyond measure.
All praise is due to Allah, and that's the perfect segue into what we're going to talk about now. He said to be to her what God created you to be. I don't think a lot of us realize, whether you're in the nation or not, that there are specific roles that a man needs to play, that he needs to actually be and actually live up to as a husband. And it's a lot of sisters who may not be aware that there's a specific thing, a specific type of person and role that you have to play as a woman to be a sufficient wife. These are roles to play. It's not a freestyle. It's not a freestyle situation, you know. And I don't want to change the subject or veer off into something, because it is a hot button topic in mainstream and the white man's news. But that's the issue that I have. You know, I really don't care what they do, but that's the thing that pops up in my mind when we talk about, I'll just put it like this, marriage between those other than man and woman. Because marriage itself, whether you like it or not, is a covenant with God. It ain't just something we do. You know, I know that this world has taken everything that started off as something dealing with God and turned it into something else. Look what he did with Christmas, the birth of Jesus. He turned it into this, you know, you got Santa Claus, you got the Christmas tree, what they tell you exactly not to do in the Bible. And then Easter, you got the Easter bunny. What the hell a bunny and eggs coming out of bunny's backside got to do with the crucifixion? See, so they take everything that is related to God and turn it into something else. Marriage is a very divine covenant, and we have roles to play in this, and we're going to cover that, because number 2, what we just read, and I'm going to bring it back up. These are the courtship comments that we're going off of right now. That's not it. That's not it. That's it. Number 2, it says, you are exploring each other's minds and hearts. What does that mean? What are you exploring for? Now, I talked about those roles. We're going to cover those roles real quickly. First of all, we're going to start, ladies first, with the sister. The sister is to be the help meet. So when the brother is actually searching, when he's actually through the courtship process, he's looking to see how much of a help meet she could be or possibly be to him. What does that actually mean? Help meet. Now we're going to cover that, because that's, like I said, these are the roles that we are not, I don't even want to use the word play. These are the roles. Now, what does that come from? Help meet, not help mate. Right. Don't get it confused. It comes from the Bible. What? The Muslims talking about the Bible? Absolutely. The Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad teaches us that there's a lot of truth in the Bible. If you go to the back of every Final Call or Muhammad Speaks newspaper, you'll find what the Muslims believe and what we want. And there's nothing in there that says we don't believe in the Bible. We believe in the truth of the Bible. And in the book of Genesis, chapter 2, verse 18, it says, and the Lord God said, it is not good that the man should be alone. I'm going to read that part again. It is not good that the man should be alone. I will make him and help meet for him. So that's what we are talking about as far as a help meet. And help meet comes from a Hebrew word, which is Ezra Kenegado. Ezra Kenegado, which means, Ezra means help, and Kenegado means face to face, or on the same level, or meeting on the same, or just being in tune with each other. So help meet. So the woman, if you're a man, brother, and if you're a man, when you are actually courting a sister, you're asking yourself, can she help me meet something? And sometimes that means that she has attributes opposite of yours, so y'all fit perfectly like a yin yang, where you're strong, she needs some work, and where you need some work, she's strong. Can she help you get somewhere? Now, sister can't help a man do nothing.
Why?
She can't help a man do nothing. So, brother, you got to ask yourself, what are you trying to do? And I'm not just talking about your little pipe dream. Well, I won't say your little pipe dreams, but I'm not just saying, oh, I want to be a rapper. Okay, cool, brother. You want to be a producer. You want to do this. Or you just want to, you know, whatever career it is. How does she complement that? How can she help you do that? So you're looking for that. That's the thing that you're exploring. As that courtship comment mentioned, you're exploring that. I believe we have a comment from my beloved sister, Sister Shauna Joy.
Yes, and I just wanted to go into a little bit more detail in that word help meet, as my husband say, not help mate,
Right.
but this is we are to be a help meet. And what are we striving as wives to help our husband to meet? Are we trying to help him to, meet his idea, his dream of success in this white man's world? We're trying to help him to meet his, meet what he thinks or what this world tells him is the American dream. No, we are striving to help our husbands meet their obligation to Allah God. That's what we are striving to help our husbands to meet, is their obligation to God. So how do I, as a woman, how do I, as your wife, help you to meet your obligation to your Creator? Not to this devil, not to, what the devil tells you is the ideal of success or what your role is in this world. No, but what does Allah God tell you your role is, a man is? What are you striving to do as a man of God? And that's what we are striving as wives to help our husbands to meet, is their obligation to God.
Absolutely. And it reminds me of what we just read, the definition of courtship, where it's pointed out that the definitions of the devil are so often immature. What we think a word means are usually so immature. We approach it from a childish standpoint. I'm saying this for a reason, because we covered or touched on what the sister's role is as they help meet. But now we're going to get into what the brother's role is. And the sisters that are watching and that will watch this, you're going to have to, like Brother Minister Louis says, put on your seatbelt, because if you got an immature understanding of these words, you're going to have a problem. Now we're going to go into what the Holy Quran, which is the book of scripture of the Muslims, what the Holy Quran says the man's job is. And I want you to measure if you've never heard this, many of you watching are believers or you sympathize with Nation Islam, so you already know what the man's job is. But for those of you who don't know what I'm about to explain to you and post up on the screen, I want you to measure what jumps up in your emotions and in your mind when I first say this magic word that starts with an M. And then I want you to measure that and then rise above emotion and then look at it like a scientist, because I'm going to break down what it really means, and what hops up in your emotions is really planted in there by your enemy, because he gives you a lot of false understandings of words so that you can be triggered or re-stimulated, as they say in the technology, re-stimulated to the point where you feel some kind of way about it. And that's one of the reasons why we lack strong relationships in our community, because we get so easily re-stimulated by certain things. So without further ado, we touched on the Bible and what the sister's role is. Now we're gonna go into the Holy Quran. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, where we're gonna find out what a man's job is in a marriage. This is from the Holy Quran, Surah or chapter 4. This is a entire surah that is devoted to women. It's called The Women. Al-Nisa, The Women. It's chapter 4, ayat 34. Men are, there go that M word, men are the maintainers of women. with what Allah has made some of them to excel others, and with what they spend out of their wealth. So the good women are obedient, guarding the unseen as Allah has guarded them. And as to those on whose part you fear desertion, admonish them and leave them alone in the beds and chastise them. But that main part is the part at the top that says men are the maintainers of women. Now, some sisters who, don't have a command of the English language, especially with it coming from Muslims, and there's a lot of misinformation, not only misinformation about Islam that people have, but there's a lot of misrepresentations of Islam here in America, as well as coming from the Arab world, because the Arabs had a culture even before the Holy Quran was revealed to them. They had a culture, and that culture didn't really change. They just sprinkled a little Islam on it, sprinkled a little bit of the Quran on it, but a lot of their customs never changed. So a lot of what you see Arabs do, you think that's Islam. No, that's just Arabs. But that word maintainer, one thing that some sisters may have a problem with is that maintain denotes some type of control, but you're not looking at it in the right fashion. Let's go deeper into the definition of maintainer. Oh yeah, we coming with all the definitions today. I wasn't just gonna stumble. I wasn't gonna just stumble into this, because this is a hot button issue right here. We're gonna go into the deeper definitions of maintain. We all know what it is to maintain, but here's some deeper definitions. To keep in an appropriate condition, operation, or force. Keep unimpaired. To keep things out your way, sister. To maintain order. To maintain public highways. That's an example. To keep in a specified state or position. To affirm, to assert, to declare. But then I like the one toward the bottom. And I'm going to see if I can move this at the bottom so we can see it clearly. See that clearly. Y'all see that? It says to keep protected from attack. To keep protected from attack. That's a major key right there. But that's just a part of being a maintainer. Now, a very simple way to deal with or to understand the maintainer role. Here in Los Angeles, and this is the example I always use, here in Los Angeles, the tallest building, the tallest skyscraper in Los Angeles is a building called the U.S. Bank Building. And the U.S. Bank Building, I'm sure, has someone, could be a man, could be a woman, but someone who is the head of maintenance. Meaning that if the elevator breaks, if there's any kind of mechanical dysfunction, even when there's an issue where something needs to be cleaned up, there's a door that doesn't work, something in that building that's supposed to work that doesn't work, that's not operating the way it should, they call the maintenance man. Now, you've known maintenance men throughout your life. You've known maintenance men in schools and maintenance men in different buildings. They're never the highest ranking man in there. They very rarely own the building that they work in. They don't have some fancy corner office. They got about 100,000 keys on their hip. They walk around, they look tired, they look frustrated sometimes. And their job is to make sure that everything is working better. It's not some high-class position. It's a very blue-collar position with a very clear purpose, and that is to keep the building operating. The building itself is always high-tech or very valuable, So it's by saying that the man is the maintainer of the woman, that's really putting the woman at the higher position. Because the maintenance man in the U.S. Bank Building is not the most valuable person in that building. The building itself is the most valuable. I bet that building is worth probably close to $1 trillion in today's market. If somebody wanted to buy it, it's the tallest building in Los Angeles. So which one is more valuable? If that maintenance man, if he don't come to work a couple of days, they'll fire his ass and replace him. But that building, they ain't just gonna knock that building down. If that building tipped over, it would crush half of downtown LA. So the building is what's valuable. The maintainer, that's just a job that some poor brother or sister in that building has. The job of the maintainer. So look at that in the most fundamental way. The man is the maintainer He's the protector. He's the one that needs to make sure, not just buying her red bottom shoes or putting a belt. Sister can do all of that by herself. But the way Allah made us under our skin, made it where it's natural for a man to have the consolation of a woman and a woman to have the consolation of a man. So maintaining is also mental, it's also emotional. That's why you see men who seem to have everything in the world, but they still seem crazy as hell. Women who got this kind of job and got this much money, but she's still mad at the world. She still got a bad attitude. That's because there's not a maintainer or a helpmeet involved in those situations. So that's why these meetings are so important, and this is what we're looking for when it comes to courtship. And I'm going to read number 2 again on those courtship comments to point out what we're actually looking for when we're courting. You are exploring each other's minds and hearts to the extent that you can, as it is easier to see into the mind than the heart, and learning each other's motivations and aspirations on how much you agree and how much and in what areas, both vital and not critical. You must also learn of those areas wherein you disagree too. There must be recognition that there will be more to learn of each other after marriage occurs. And again, we want to encourage everyone that's watching to hit us up with comments or questions. And let's see if we have any pertinent comments at this point. Dear Sister Shauna, could you hit us up?
No, sir, not at this time. But I do, again, would like to encourage everyone to please ask any questions, any comments that you may have are welcomed. And again, we are coming to you straight from the Courtship Manual, so we want to give it to you from the man of God and the messenger's mouth himself.
And with that said, we're going to take a quick break. We will be right back. A quick word from our sponsors. We want to thank everybody that's viewing. We will be right back. Don't go anywhere. We're going to go further into this Courtship Manual. And again, you have any questions or comments, hit us up, put it in the comment section. Any questions, any comments, anything you want to know about what the Muslims believe when it comes to courtship, please hit us up. We'll be right back after these messages. And we back, just like we said we would. And again, we are dealing with revolutionary relationships, and also the actual topic is the courtship process. This is part 2. Go to NationTown's page on Facebook and go back and watch the first episode if you have not seen it. We want to thank everybody that's chiming in with questions and comments. We're going to get to questions and comments as soon as we get them. This is a group discussion. It ain't just us two. But I believe we have a comment or a question, and we're going to get right to it, Queen.
Yes, sir. We have Brother Randu Allah. He says, is it possible to start a courtship while the two are living in different states?
Absolutely.
Excellent
Great question, and that relates somewhat to the question that we got last week. Is it possible for those to start a courtship living in 2 different states? This is actually the question that I was hoping somebody would ask, because that's the situation that myself and Sister Shauna Joy was in. You know, we met at Savior's Day. She was a believer in state of Texas, outside of Dallas, Waxahachie. I was in Los Angeles, as we are now. And not only is it possible, but I just your brother. This is not coming from the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. I know he doesn't have anything against it, but I believe that long distance courtship is not only possible, but I would encourage it. Now, I'm not saying some people gonna be mad at me if you got somebody got your eye on someone in the city that you live in. I'm not saying to overlook all the sisters in your city or your mosque. And keep in mind, we talking to believers, registered members of the Nation of Islam and unregistered who may not be in the mosque. But I'm not saying to overlook what's local, but I got very wise advice when I was single, and that is, as it says in the Holy Quran, to travel the land. And to give it more context, travel the land to see what became of those who did this or who did that. But also travel the land, travel the world. We're also taught to seek knowledge from the cradle to the grave, even if we have to go to far off China. That's what Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said. So with that said, we should at least be able to travel the land for love and for marriage. So, we shouldn't feel confined to where we are. Don't think that, okay, I'm in Seattle, I'm in Phoenix, I'm in LA, I'm in Houston, I'm in New York. I just gotta wait for some sister or for some brother to come through the door here. That's the beauty of our national events. If you're in the Nation of Islam, like Holy Day of Atonement, Savior's Day, whatever the case may be. And if you're not in the nation, that's the beauty of getting out and just traveling, because there's no confinements on that. But it's absolutely possible. If you're in the nation, the process in which we go by is that what you don't want to do is get caught up in a situation where you're going too far and you're doing a whole bunch of lovey-dovey over the phone with the sister. What you want to do is make it clear to your upline or your uplink in your mosque. This is if you're in the nation. Get in contact with your lieutenant, first officer or someone. Let them know that there's a sister or a brother in this city. Get info. You got to finesse a little bit to find out names. You don't have to know everything about them. Just at least have a name that you can pass up to your lieutenant, and then they'll pass that up, and then you'll find out, is this person even available? Are they looking for courtship? And then there's also courtship paperwork. It's just, which is really a formality just to get it out there so it's in writing. It's always legally binding when you put something in writing. And usually if you're willing to write it down, that means you're serious about it. So when you put it in writing, it's put out there, and then that person that you have an interest in, they can either confirm or deny. They can either say, you know what, yeah, I'm looking to go ahead and start a courtship with this person, or they can say no. But I want to point out why I think and why I even suggest that you consider long distance courtship. Now, let me say something else. If you think about long distance courtship and you immediately get turned off, no, I can't do that. I gotta touch and feel them. If that's what pops up in your mind, then you got courtship all wrong. Because first of all, that's not a part of courtship. Lovey-dovey and intimate and physical relationships, that's not a part of courtship. It's about exploring one another's minds. And last time I checked, that could be done over the phone. That could be done in writing. That could be done over letters. That can be done over Facebook. That can be done over social media. I ain't saying to get into those social media courtships, but I'm saying that if you're talking about just the mind and thoughts and understandings and belief systems, then that's something that you don't have to be, thanks to technology. You don't have to be right up on it. So if you only think, oh, I gotta be there to touch them and to see them every day, then you probably got the wrong understanding of courtship. You probably think courtship is boyfriend, girlfriend. You probably think courtship is go together. You probably think courtship is, oh, this is who I'm gonna hold hands with at Savior's Day next year. No. You got it all twisted. And the thing is, since there is no, now why is there such an emphasis on no physical contact? It ain't just some spooky rule. Because if you a natural man, and if she's a natural woman, there's a natural attraction to the opposite sex. It's similar to the reason why in our mosque you have the brother sitting on one side and the sister sitting on the other. Because when we right up on each other, and especially if there's any kind of physical, intimate activities going on, sex and sexual attraction are some of the most intoxicating experiences, as much or maybe even more than chemical intoxication, more intoxicating than liquor, more intoxicating than weed. So you'll make a decision just based on, man, how cute she is, how her body is formed, you know, how warm how strong his arm, he got the muscles, he's so strong, Hercules, you know. So you going off of that moment of emotional comfort and emotional attraction and physical attraction, and not what's really going on in their mind. And then that's also the first thing to wear off, or that's the first thing that you turn away from once you actually get in a relationship. Though y'all watching this, y'all know what I'm talking about. Y'all done got into relationships the wrong way, because she was cute, because he was this and she was that, and then that wore off real quick, and then you immediately start going into their mind, and then their mind started to turn you off. Their actions started to turn you off. Their belief system started to turn you off. The things that they value started to turn you off or turn you on. So that's what we're looking for in a courtship. So when you're dealing with long distance, you're forced to deal with each other strictly mentally. And then when if y'all decide to get married, the physical becomes icing on the cake. That's like popping the champagne after winning the championship. You know, like my brother Nipsey said, when you pop the cork, you know, because the mission was hard. You know what I mean? So, but the rest, you want to focus on the mental, and it's easier to do that when it's long distance. So I strongly recommend that. I think we have another comment or question.
Yes, we do. Beautiful comment. We have Sister Colette Muhammad. She said, "That's right. My husband relocated to my city after our courtship." She said, "I was in an 18-month courtship. Best decision I've ever made." Yes, exploration of the mind. Chaperones are a must. Yes, ma'am.
Come on.
That part.
Come on. Now we're gonna go over some things that we have not touched on yet in the courtship manual. She talked about the length of her courtship. She also mentioned chaperones. We do have something called chaperones. Now, again, remember what we said about immature understandings or immature definitions. Chaperone don't mean a couple that's sniffing behind y'all and swatting your hand when you try to touch her brother, or vice versa when she try to touch. That's not what chaperones mean. And we're going to talk about chaperones either on this episode if we have another question regarding that. If you want to know what the chaperone's purpose is, to go ahead and hit that up in the comments or questions, and we'll give you our best understanding of it. But we are going to touch on that eventually on one of the future parts of this straight out of the manual. But I also want my wife to touch on that first question, which was the question of long distance relationships. Is it possible, and what do you think overall about it?
Yes, sir. I definitely think and know from my own experience personally that long distance courtships are possible. And you know, I believe that especially for us coming out of the world, and I'm not even going to say especially for us coming out of the world who are used to dating and moving a little fast, but we all, whether we were born in the nation under the teachings and under the law, or if we were in the world for about 30-some years before you came in, like myself, you know, we all have a nature about ourselves, you know, and that nature, you know, that attracts a man to a woman and a woman to a man, that's ordained by Allah God, and it's strong, not strong, but strong. So one of the benefits of having a long distance relationship is that it helps to check that nature, because it takes out it takes out even the opportunity. The minister was speaking on a lecture once how, you know, you'll stay, not to say that anyone that you would, you know, maybe slip up and get physical, but, you know, like the minister was saying, when you go to stay in hotels, sometimes you'll see a sign that says, you know, don't tip the maid. Take your jewelry, put your jewelry up, don't leave money out. You know, so you don't even want to tempt yourself. So that's one of the pluses with having that long distance courtship is that it takes out that whole opportunity. And you know, eventually my husband and myself, we did go travel to each other's cities, but by that time, you know, we had such you know, I mean, I knew y'all, I knew we had such a good you know, foundation, because there was no temptation there. So it was straight mental, you know, it was straight mental. I mean, we would sit on the phone for hours. We would have questions ready. Okay, you go ahead, you can start with your questions today. You know, we would have just literally a list of questions. So, you know, I really think that is a really great aspect of the long distance courtship. It is definitely something that I would not tell people, you know, to don't turn your backs on that long distance. That changed my life, literally, life-changing, best decision of my life
All
to
praises,
this day.
all praises due to Allah. And on the whole thing of intimacy, you know, mathematics is Islam. Islam is mathematics. There's exactly 23 hours, 56 minutes, 46 seconds in a day. Now, please, sisters, do not post this in the comments. I just want you to think. I'm going to assume that the sisters who are watching this or going to watch this have some type of sexual experience. I want you to think about your sexual experiences and how long it took each experience. It probably wasn't that long. You know, one brother might, you know, been 15 minutes, 20 minutes. You know, it might be minute men. Hey, we all grown. This is grown folks information. 23 hours, 56 minutes, 46 seconds. So even if the brother is a champion and he knock out a 2-hour event, we still got 21 hours, 56 minutes, 46 seconds to cover. So the mental aspect of the man and the woman is much more important than the physical. For those of you who have ever been, I'm sure everybody watching this has been in some kind of relationship. Ask yourself, how much time did you have to be physically lovey-dovey and hugged up with that person? Some of you may have been married at some point. How much time did y'all really spend on a regular, I ain't talking about your honeymoon, on a regular basis, hugged up under each other? If y'all were like that all day, y'all probably didn't produce nothing but babies. That's it. Y'all didn't produce nothing. Y'all didn't get anything done. The lights was probably cut off. You was probably homeless. Because, I mean, if you both grown, you got stuff to do. So the mental aspect, all the things that you want to do with your life, your beliefs, your aspirations, that's the stuff you got to dig into. That physical really is very unimportant. Now, we live in a world that as soon as you turn on the TV or log on to social media, it's telling you that physical means everything. Your magazines are telling you that physical appearance means everything. Everything around you, the videos you watch and the movies you watch tells you that means everything. But in the grand scheme of things, the science of mating, it means very little. It's important, and we're going to touch on it eventually, but it does not mean everything. We will touch on, before we get out of here, I want to let you know we're probably going to be on another 10 minutes, but I want to remind you, this is part 2. we have not set a certain amount of parts there's going to be. We just scratched the surface of the manual. So this might be a 50-part series. So I don't want y'all to think that everything has to be covered in this, but I think we have another question or comment.
Yes, we do have a comment, and we kind of touched on this comment on the previous show, part 1. Our sister Randu Allah says, "Who does the relocating? Shouldn't the sister relocate? Shouldn't the sister do the relocating?"
Okay. Have we confirmed this, sister Randu?
Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize. Okay, sir.
Because I thought that was a brother. All right, brother.
Brother Randu Allah. Excuse me.
Could you read that the actual question one more time?
Yes. Who does the relocating? Shouldn't the sister do the relocating?
Not necessarily, brother. This is my humble opinion. Because let me tell you the things, and I mentioned this in the last episode, but we're not going to assume that everybody saw every episode. There's some people who believe that the sister, and I would put myself in this group, that the sister actually has a lot more to lose and possibly even to gain So it's very important that the sister is comfortable with that move. It shouldn't be a situation where she just has to. You got to consider all the parameters. You got to consider, okay, like I mentioned last episode, the sister, she just closed on a house, or she's got a really nice apartment that she worked really hard to get, and it's a nice, living environment. It's not fair to make her drop all of that and then she gonna come live with you, and you in a different situation. It's just not. And this is even for when they're in the same city, because that's something that we have to run into, whether you're in the same city or not, is who's gonna move in with who. And then the long distance aspect, you got to consider the fact that she is a sister. We just covered the roles of marriage. Maintainer, the man is the maintainer, the woman is the helpmeet. What is she helping you do in your city? Is your city even the best city for what it is you're trying to do, brother? And as far as you being a maintainer, she has to submit to that, not necessarily to you, unless you tethered to God, but she has to submit to the fact that you're going to be the maintainer. So she's going to uproot herself, come live with you wherever you are, and she has to trust that you're the maintainer. And then her family also has to consider that. They got to be like, damn, you going all the way across the country. Is this man going to be able to take care of you? How many relatives do you have? If y'all get into it, how far does she have to go to be around somebody that cares for her? Now, if you're in the nation, then you have the believing family. You have the mosque that you can always go to. Not just the woman, but, women, y'all violent and crazy these days, too. We need somebody to run to, too. So we always got the believing family. But I think that should be something that's talked about in the courtship, especially when the courtship looks like it's going in the right direction. That's something you got to talk about and deal with. And both of y'all really got to plead your case. Sometimes the sister is ready to get the hell out of wherever she is. Sometimes the brother is really wants to change of pace. But you got to talk about that. But I don't think that there's nothing in this courtship manual, and there's nothing that I've heard from the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan or from the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad that says one has to do the other. The man got to move in with the sister got to move with the man. That's just one of those deep questions that you got to deal with, and that's all the more reason to not get intoxicated on emotions and physical, proximity and all of that, because there's some serious mental questions that y'all got to deal with, and location and where y'all gonna live is one of them. So don't get caught up in all the emotion of it, because y'all, as you can see, we got some big issues to deal with. Any further comments?
Yes, we have a beautiful comment, kind of a testimony. Brother Kennard Young, thank you so much.
Yes,
brother. He says, I'm in Gainesville, Florida. My wife and I have 3 beautiful children, 2 daughters and 1 son. I do the best we can to impart in their lives the teachings of Elijah Muhammad by way of the minister. My daughter Emily is 14, my son is 11, my young daughter is 8. I constantly remind my children that the standard in life is righteousness, which at this point is only implemented by the teachings, that's right, which is presented by the Nation of Islam. I feel as if I'm the only person in my area that loves the teachings and the Nation of Islam. It's so much I want to ask, but I also want to share some background on my situation. Thank you so much, brother, that we really appreciate you being steadfast, and if there's but 1 or 2 believers, the third is Allah. So you keep on, rearing your children in the way that they should go of righteousness, and Allah will continue to bless you. And these teachings are universal. Download the Mosque No. 27 app, and that is another tool. Just like we are utilizing a tool to strive to keep the believers informed and to propagate our faith to the universe, throughout, not just nationwide, international, all over, because everyone needs these teachings.
That's right. All praise is due to Allah. And if I'm not mistaken, I believe we do have a Gainesville study group. And you always want to be amongst the believers. But in the meantime, continue to do that, brother. Continue to strive to raise your beautiful family. And that's something, and that's why this is called revolutionary relationships. because we throw all this stuff around about what black folks need to do. Oh, we need reparations. Oh, we need to go do this. Oh, we need this. Oh, we need unity. Oh, we need guns. Oh, we need to do this and do that and do that. But you hardly ever hear us say we need to have stronger families. We need to have stronger families. If you look at our problems, all of our problems that we have in our community, you could easily trace it back to an issue or problem in our family or lack thereof. Our gang problem. Most of these young men and women are looking for a family. They looking for some kind of structure. They looking for something to believe in because their families are all busted up. You know, the way we treat each other, you know, in the workplace and out in public. You know, if you go to that person, you ever run into a black person or a Negro, two different things that has a terrible mentality or personality, go meet their family. And within 5 minutes, you're going to say, oh, I see what's going on with this brother or this sister. Look at his family or lack thereof. So everything comes down to family, and that's the first step to unity, is a strong family. So shout out to our brother. Thank you for that comment. Do we have any comments or questions?
Yes, Brother Randu Alab, whose question we were just in regards to relocating, addressed, he says, my brother, I have business and property in my state.
Yes,
And
sir.
brother, what I would say, just like I spoke on last week when we were speaking on the topic of relocating, is that, you know, that was one of the reasons why I decided to go. I felt secure in my husband as a maintainer, and I felt as though for him to be able to do his job as a maintainer and a provider successfully, it would be best for me to come to him where he is already established. You know, I'm blessed that, you know, he already had the mindset, not just the mindset, but he already laid a foundation and placed into reality where we were able to do for self. He was already doing for self. So, you know, I felt as though it was best for me to go to him. So when it comes to the topic of relocating, there's really no, you know, straight this is that and that is this.
Okay.
You know, it's best for those two to determine what would be. And that's something that goes into the deciding factor of you all deciding if you are right to make that next step into marriage.
And on that note, I'm going to bring back up the definition of courtship, and it goes into a little bit more detail. Courtship is the season in which a couple officially and deliberately seek confirmation concerning God's will for marriage. But if you look through that definition as you see it there, it also touches on at the very top. It says courtship is the intentional process in which two people formally decide to engage in discovery. Now, some people watching may or may not be familiar with the legal process. And even in the white man's world, the legal world. Now, black folks, we get unlawfully arrested and find ourselves in legal trouble a lot more than anybody else, or we all certified paralegals anyway. But the discovery aspect of a trial, remember the first part of the word courtship is court. And in the first part, any part of a trial, you deal with the discovery phase. That's where both sides are discovering the exhibits or the evidence that the other side has. You know, they request exhibits or evidence that the other side has, and vice versa. So everything's on the table. So when you're watching court TV shows and they bring up Exhibit A, Exhibit B, both sides are already aware of that. You know, it ain't really no such thing as no surprise witness and surprise this, surprise that. It may be a surprise to the third party that's watching on TV, but not a surprise to those both sides. So bring your exhibits to the table, brother or sister. If you own land and you well established where you are, that's an exhibit to put on the table with that sister and say, hey, you know, I own land, I'm established. It would be, you know, economically inconvenient for me to just uproot and move where you are. And for a sister, especially a black woman, I'm going to make a prediction that 99% of sisters is not going to have a problem with that. They're not going to say, oh, I don't care about your land. I don't care about your money. I don't care about your property. I want you to come move to the projects in Oakland with me. I don't think it's going to work like that. I think she's going to say, oh, land, oh, property. Okay, that makes sense. And how they react to you saying that I really would prefer that you come and live where I am, whether it's the man or the woman saying this. If one side does have a strong preference, then watch how they react. If you have a strong preference, watch how they react. That's going to tell you something. Measure everything the other person does or says through the process. Everything. The way, if they twitch a little bit. If you say, sister, I need food to be properly cooked every time I come home, and she twitch a little bit, pay attention to that twitch. Sister, if you ask him, listen, brother, I'm not with no financial struggle, so brother, if you don't want to work, that's gonna be a problem. And if he twitch a little bit, sister, pay attention. Pay attention to that twitch. Ask him, why did you twitch? Are you employed? Are you okay? Are you not confident in how employable you are? Are you self-employed? Are you not confident in your ability to go out there and produce for your family? Pay attention to any kind of hesitations or whatever, and that's another reason. I hate to harp on it, but this is something worth harping on, why you don't want to be intoxicated with just the idea of just, oh, that's my Muslim boyfriend, girlfriend, or that's my go-together partner, and getting too caught up in emotions and whatnot, because you want to pay attention to those little subtle things, where they oh man, I gotta come and live with you. What's their problem with that? What's the issue? Is there somebody in your city that they running from, that they trying to hide from? What's going on? So measure everything. Measure everything. There are no absolutes to it, brother. But put your case on the table. And if it's a convincing case, that's what happened with us. The only preference I had, I enjoy living in Los Angeles, but I really love the trajectory of the believing family out here in Los Angeles, Mosque number 27. I love the believing family out here. I love Mosque 27. I love, our Western Regional Student Minister, just the whole believing family. And the training that we get out here, not to knock anybody else, but I had already fallen in love with that. So I just put the exhibits on the table and said, this is why I think we should come here. If she would have put up a fight, I would have looked deeply into her exhibits. I was waiting on her exhibit. I wanted to see, if she would have put up a good case, I would have been like, okay, that makes sense. Let's do it that way. But be scientists about it. Don't be emotional about it. Think like gods, both of y'all. Think like gods about it and say, you know what? It's just intelligent for her to move in with you, or vice versa. Don't look at it emotionally and just be like, oh, I'm the man, so you need to come live in this hut or this shack or this cardboard box with me and leave your $1 million house you just closed on, sister. Don't be emotional about it. Be scientific about it. Yes, ma'am. Do we have any other questions or comments before we close out?
Yes, sir. Our brother Kennard Young, once again, he says, thank you. Our people really need this sort of segment as a basic guide of mating. Yes, sir. All praise belongs to Allah. Again, brother, go ahead, download that app to stay in tune and connected. And we have Sister Bart's MGT Olivia talking to you. Go together, partner. I'm done. Since he's always making up words, you should hear him from the rostrum. You should hear him at home.
We go together. We go together. See that go together stuff? I'm with you too, sister. I'm done with that too. Straight up, I agree 100%. But that's how crazy our people are. We so, and it makes sense if you sit down with a sister, a black woman, and say, and she'll plead her case, and you won't be able to disagree with 90% of what she says. If you ask a brother, what bothers you about sisters today? And by brother and sister, I'm just talking about the Aboriginal family, not just registered believers in the Nation of Islam. Whatever the stuff that he's gonna say, a lot of it's gonna be rooted in truth, and you can't. But when you get to digging into how they are going about meeting and courting the opposite sex, then you start finding the problems. Like you ask a brother, how you feel about tacos? And he say, oh, tacos are the most disgusting types of food I ever ate in my life. And then you ask him, where do you get your tacos? Oh, I get my tacos from the trash can. Oh, okay. That's why you think tacos are disgusting, because you eating them out the damn garbage can. You need to find a good, one of our brown brothers who know how to cook a taco, make a taco, and then eat it, and then you might have a different understanding of it. So we're judging each other based on really silly sciences and silly structure as to how we go about it. We're going about this whole courtship thing wrong. We're going about this whole marriage thing wrong. So I agree with you, sister. This go together stuff is silly, it's immature, but we still doing it, and I don't know why. And that's the whole purpose of this program. But thank you for that comment, sister. Yes, ma'am. Any other questions, comments before we close out?
Take a look. Assalamu alaikum, Brother Sherman. Thank you for
Assalamu
joining
alaikum.
us.
You next, Brother Sherman. You next, bro.
That's right.
Yes, sir.
Yes. Michael Parrish, Black Love. Yes, sir.
Absolutely,
Black Love
that
is
part.
Black Power.
Straight like that. Straight like that. With that said, dear brothers. Oh,
Hold it now.
okay.
Jaquali. Ooh, I pray I'm pronouncing your name correctly.
She can't read, y'all. We talked about this when we was courting. I'm just playing.
I
That's it.
can read.
Where we at? Jekaloy?
See, he can't read either.
Shout out to our brother.
Yes, for someone who is struggling, any advice? Struggling in what manner? Just to narrow it down, if you may, brother.
You mean do you mean financial or struggling to find a mate? Let's see if he responds
Yes.
in real time.
And
I'm gonna go ahead and touch on both because I think both needs to be heard. And again, everything we talking about is either based on the teachings of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and if it is, I will and we will point that out, or it's coming directly from the Courtship Manual or our own opinion. And when it is our own opinion, then we will make that clear. And this is coming from your brother. Just my opinion. When it comes to struggling financially, brothers, you do need to prepare yourself to be that maintainer, as I mentioned. But at the same time, brother, get it out your mind. And this is one of the misconceptions that men get from the media and from watching too much TV and listening to too much, raggedy music. A brother will think, oh, I don't have a house, I don't have the land, I don't have a car, I don't have this, I don't have that, I don't have the kind of house I want, the kind of car I want, so I'm not even gonna think about a woman. Or we use deceptive intelligence and say, and this happens in religious circles and even in the nation. Oh, I know I got to be on point to get an MGT, so I'm just gonna mess around with the non-MGT, the sisters who don't give a damn about my situation until I get to a certain point, and then I'm gonna go. No, brother. Prepare yourself for positions awaiting you, as it says in our, in our lessons.
and he does say both the women.
Okay, so both women and financial. So, brother, prepare yourself, and at the same time, keep your eyes open, and understand that courtship, it's a court proceeding. It's a court trial. It does not mean, okay, we courting, so we absolutely gonna get married. It's a foregone conclusion. That's the purpose of courtship, to find out if that other person, you might find out that person, remember I said that courtship, help me, comes from the Hebrew term Ezra Kenegedo, which means helper face to face, or helper that's on the same level as you. You might find out that sister's struggling. And then y'all might come together through the courtship process. Y'all might realize that she's your yin and you're her yang. So her struggle plus your struggle might fit together to mean that y'all could help each other out. And you can ask yourself, is her struggle something that I don't want to have no parts with? And sister, you can figure out through the courtship process, is his struggle something that I don't want? That's the kind of answers, those are the kind of questions that you want to ask and the kind of answers that you're looking for. I think a lot of us make the mistake of doing the courtship before the courtship. We look at him and say, we look at what it looks like from the outside. Sister, look at him from the outside. Well, oh, he driving a nice car. Oh, he always clean. Oh, he look like he always happy. Oh, he seemed like he know the teachings because I heard him talk in study group. Oh, okay, yeah. And then you cruise through the courtship process without asking any questions, and then you find out, man, his uncle gave him that car. He looked good in his uniform, but he really raggedy as hell in his mind. You find out that he really don't know much. he really ain't that wise. He really just parroting what little bit he knows. And then you find out all of this stuff after the fact, after you've already said I do. So don't hinder yourself. Remember, the one question that Allah asked Iblis when Iblis, refused to submit to Adam as he was told to do by God. God didn't just trip like most black men do, and we know God is a black man. He didn't just say, nigga, what you tripping on? He didn't say why. He said, what hindered you? What hindered you? And God is a scientist, because he wanted to hear what Iblis was going to say. What hindered you? What is it that's standing between you and just doing like I said? So when it comes to courtship, brother, you want to take that unrealistic idea of yourself. You don't want to hold yourself back and say, oh, I do it when I get this and I get that and I get this and I get that, because then it can also fester into deceptive intelligence, where you still want to just be out there running around, because 50% of your faith is marriage. And the minister said, if you out there not even trying to court, not even trying to get married, you basically handicapped. So you limping around this world and using it as an excuse, I don't have everything I want. Now, as far as just women in general, brother, keep your eyes open, brother. Keep your eyes open, and also don't be afraid, to the sisters and the brothers, to take that first step. If you see somebody who may be worth courting means somebody worth examining for marriage, then go ahead and let it be known. Contact your uplink, your lieutenant, whatever the case may be, and say, hey, I'm interested in that person for courtship, and go from there. And like I said earlier, if you don't see anything in your immediate surroundings that looks compatible, appears compatible, remember, courtship is where you find out if they are compatible. In the beginning, you're just trying to see if they look like they might be compatible. Travel the nation. Look around the world. Social media now. We don't want to turn social media into no Muslim dating site, but we have groups. We have message board groups and stuff on Facebook that are set up and that are really, they done right. They're done righteously. We ain't breaking no laws on there, restrictive laws. Where you can get into the mind of some of the brothers and some of the sisters and see what they working with up here to give you some ideas. So, just be faithful though and be confident. Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
What I would say is, in regards to the financial, the minister himself did say we should not think about courtship until we've been financially stable on our own. For been known to say that romance without finance is a nuisance. Right. So you definitely want to make sure that you do have that area, in balance, in check, before you do start looking into courtship seriously. Start working on yourself, of course, first. But, before you move forward with that first step, as far as, putting in papers, make sure that you do have that financial, because you don't want to, hinder something from the beginning that can be beautiful if you're in the right position for it.
Right.
As far as, the sisters, you want to put yourself in positions, and environments where you're going to find the type of sister that you're looking for. So make sure that you're doing the type of things and presenting yourself for the same type of individual sister that you're looking for. You want someone who's steadfast. You need to be steadfast. Are you at the mosque? Are you working? Are you striving? And also, like my husband said, there are, social sites online, big shout out to New Beginners, Courtship and Proper Relationships, CPR. Check them out on Facebook. It's a beautiful group.
Absolutely.
For single believers. They have to check you out first, and that was one of the things I loved about the group, is that they're going, what's your number, what mosque you from, what's your
That's right.
Are you active? So that's another aspect. We're right down to the modern times with this. So take your time, and like my husband said, keep your eyes open, but also make sure that you're reflecting what you want as well. And we have Jamie, we've got some more comments before we close out. I have Sister Christina Davis. She says, if family sticks together, then the family has more spending power. It's like other families like Rothschilds are powerful because they stick together. But if it was rigged in their favor though. But out of all these years, most of us don't have a family home, as you said, in bulk.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, ma'am. But at the same time, if how it is to be upon the same page and keeping their side of the bargain.
That's right.
Yes, ma'am.
And let me say this before we get off, because we're about to shut it down for this particular episode before we go forward. But one point that I was touching on a little bit earlier was the importance of being amongst the believers, because in every believing family, whether you're in a mosque or study group, you're going to find at least one strong example of a married couple in your mosque. Pay attention to them. Talk to them. Even if you're single, go up to that brother or that sister and ask them. Sister go up to a sister, brother go up to a brother that fits that description, and ask them about what they went through and how they got married. And that's another reason why we're doing this, just to kind of throw our experiences out there for someone to learn from. You may find out that brother didn't have the whole world in the palm of his hand when they met and started courting. You might find out that sister was crazy as hell when they you might find out all kind of interesting stuff, and then you also find out how they did it. It really has to get back in our community to a each one teach one type environment, and we got to feed off of each other and feed off of experiences, so we not just all out here by ourselves. 40, 50 million of us or more when you throw in the rest of our Aboriginal family. But so many of us are just out here fending for ourselves and finding things out the hard way when it don't have to be like that. Be around, other like-minded people. Be around the believers. Find out what's working for them. Find out on what's working. Leave them bitter people alone. You're going to run, no matter what circle you in, what you believe, you're going to run into them bitter people. And misery loves company. Be around the people that are striving. Be around the people that are striving, and they don't mean they perfect. Ain't no perfect marriages that don't ever argue, don't ever have no differences. Be around those that are striving, and those years will tell you something. 10, 15, 20, 30 years, okay, they doing something right. They got something figured out. Ear hustle on them, and also come up to them and ask them directly, and you're going to learn something, and you'll find out just how, for example, how financially viable you need to be at the time going in. But don't put any unrealistic numbers on that. And don't let a sister put no kind of unrealistic stuff on your head, brother. I need a man that got this and all of this and all that. If you dig deeper on her, you're going to find out that she got a long way to go too. Don't put that unrealistic stuff. Find out what your job is. Whenever you're looking for an actual job, speaking of finances, and every job ad has a job description, and that job description says, okay, you need to know how to do this, you need to know how to do that, you need to be able to do this, you need to be able to stand up for long hours, or you need to know how to do C++ programming, or you need to know how to work this kind of machine or that kind of machine. And if you feel like you're prepared to do that, then go ahead and fill out that application. Look deep into what a maintainer is. Remember, one of the definitions of maintain was to be able to keep them where they are, at least at the level that they're at, and unimpaired. To keep in an appropriate condition, operation, or force. Keep unimpaired. To keep in a specified state or position. To affirm, assert, declare. To support. Also to protect them from danger, from attack. These are the actual meanings of a maintainer. And ask yourself, do you feel like you're prepared to do that with that particular sister? If the answer is yes, then again, these are questions that you want to really get to actual answers to in the courtship. Don't be afraid of courtship. Don't let really anything hold you back from courtship. If you're really not prepared to be married and you're handling the courtship right, it's going to be exposed in the courtship. She gonna figure out, man, this brother don't have a pot to piss in or a window to throw it out of. This ain't gonna work. and then y'all can, in a civilized manner, come to the agreement that, okay, this is not going to work. Assalamu alaikum, dear sister. She gonna say assalamu alaikum to you. Y'all gonna go back to just being brother and sister, and it's all good. And it shouldn't be any hard feelings. You shouldn't be going around slack talking her or him. Sister, girl, I was courting him for 3 months. I found out, he had $4 in his bank account. Don't go around telling people what was going on. Just y'all tried it, didn't work out. Back to being brother and sister, no big deal. So don't be afraid of courtship. You never know what you're gonna find out about that person that will let you know that this is the person for you, or vice versa. And that's what I was alluding to when I said trying to court before the courtship. Oh, he don't have this and she don't have that, or the brother telling himself, I don't have this and I don't have that, so I'm not even gonna try. I'm not even gonna go into the courtship. No, let the court proceeding go through its proper parameters, and then let that be the deciding factor. And that's going to, if you do it right, it's going to tell you everything you need to know, and you can go from there. We're going to have one last call for comments or questions, and then we're going to go ahead and close out on this episode.
Yes, sir. We have Brother Kennard Young. Once again, thank you for all your beautiful comments and questions, sir.
Yes, sir, brother.
He says, 15 years strong. Communication is key, that part.
Yes.
But having an
absolutely.
Understanding is everything.
That's
All
right.
praise due to Allah. My wife understands my love for the teachings and the minister.
Man,
Hey, sweet to
and
Allah.
all praise. And I'm glad that we're hearing from married believers and just married people in general, because again, some of the best advice that we got from our beloved same man who officiated our wedding, our beloved Western Regional Student Minister, Abdul Malik Saeed Muhammad, also known as Tony Muhammad, was that you still need to court, even when you're married. In fact, if you have not courted, it out that scientifically we grow new skin. Our cells reproduce almost completely every 7 years. And since you've been together for 7 years or more, brother said 15, that's twice. That's over twice as much as 7. That means you've been through new experiences. You've done different things. Some people have been married, more than half their lives. So that means you've done a lot of growing. You've learned a lot of stuff. Record each other. Record each other. That don't mean that if the courtship don't work out, get divorced, but just record each other so you get to know each other, what's really in your mind and what's going on. So I'm glad that we're hearing from married couples. I want to strongly invite married people to not only continue watching this series, but also to chime in, because this is a group effort. This ain't just us trying to tell y'all what to do. Man, hell, we still figuring it out. So we need help. We need help. So all the married couples out there, chime in. The 15, the 20, the 30, the 40-year married couples, man, please chime in and help us out. We need that help.
Yes, sir.
All praises due to Allah. Well, with that said, dear brothers and sisters, I want to thank everybody for supporting and chiming in. Inshallah, we're going to keep this going on Tuesday evenings and Sunday afternoons. Inshallah, those dates may change, but we want to do this twice a week because it's such an important topic and an important series. To me, it's the foundation of our salvation as a people. We can't get around this relationship thing. It's just no way to get around it. And eventually we're going to graduate and go into different types of relationships, such as friendships, brotherhood and sisterhood, not just, marriage. But right now we're going to deal with marriage because that's most important, and just move along from there. But with that said, dear brothers and sisters, I want to leave you as I greeted you in the words of peace. We say it in the Arabic language. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
I was told to deliver this message.
you.